That Selthar Dominion had conquered dozens of worlds. Their warships had burned civilizations to ash. No species had ever resisted them for long. To them, war was simple: attack, crush, enslave, and move on. When their long-range scouts detected Earth, they saw another weak species waiting to be conquered. Fleet Commander Xalvok sat in the command chair of the Voidfang, his flagship. His reptilian eyes studied the holographic display of Earth. It was a lush world, full of life. But what interested him most were the humans. They had primitive technology, nothing close to the Dominion's power. "This will be easy," Xalvok said, his voice filled with arrogance. "Send a single battleship. Demand their surrender. If they resist, burn one of their cities as a warning." His officers nodded. The plan was routine. The Dominion had done this 100 times before. The humans would either bow or burn. The Dreadclaw, a Selthar warship 5 kilometers long, slipped out of hyperspace near Earth's orbit. It sent a message in all known galactic languages. "This world now belongs to the Selthar Dominion. Surrender or be destroyed." The message repeated 3 times. Then silence. That Selthar expected fear. They expected surrender. Instead, they got something else. A simple response came through on all frequencies. A human voice, calm and steady. "No." Xalvok frowned when he heard the transmission. "No. That's all they have to say." He turned to his second in command. "Prepare the bombardment." But before the Dreadclaw could fire, something unexpected happened. From Earth, a missile streaked upward at terrifying speed. It wasn't an ordinary missile. It moved faster than that Selthar expected, evading their scanners until it was too late. The missile struck the Dreadclaw dead center. A massive explosion tore through the ship's hull. The mighty warship, which had conquered worlds, was obliterated in seconds. Xalvok stood up in shock. What? More missiles launched from Earth. The Selthar fleet scrambled to activate their shields, but the humans were faster. In moments, 3 more ships exploded. "How are they doing this?" Xalvok demanded. "They're supposed to be primitive." One of his officers analyzed the attack. "Commander, their weapons are not as weak as we thought. They've adapted. They knew we were coming." Xalvok's claws dug into the armrests of his chair. That wasn't possible. No species had ever been ready for them. But the humans were fighting back. He growled, "Fine. If they want to fight, we'll give them one." He ordered the full invasion fleet to attack. This was no longer a simple conquest. This was war. The Selthar Dominion had never faced resistance like this before. Earth was supposed to be an easy conquest, just another name on the long list of worlds they had crushed. But now, as explosions filled the void of space, Fleet Commander Xalvok felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. The first warship had been destroyed in seconds. The next 3 had followed just as quickly. The humans had fired their missiles with terrifying precision, striking weak points in the Selthar ship's defenses. How had they known where to hit? How had they developed weapons strong enough to break through Dominion armor? Xalvok had no answers, but he did have a fleet of warships ready to strike. He snarled, slamming a fist against the armrest of his command chair. "Enough. Send in the invasion force. Ground troops, armored walkers, aerial assault teams. Deploy everything. I want this world under our control by the end of the cycle." His officers hesitated for a brief moment. "Commander, perhaps we should analyze their defenses first." Xalvok cut him off with a glare. "We are the Selthar Dominion. We do not hesitate. We do not fear. Attack." Within moments, the Selthar fleet moved into position. Thousands of troop carriers detached from the warships and descended toward Earth's surface. They punched through the planet's atmosphere like flaming meteors, heading straight for major population centers. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Sydney. The world watched in horror as the sky burned with the arrival of an alien army. On the ground, Earth's military forces scrambled into action. Fighter jets roared into the sky, missiles launched from hidden bases, anti-aircraft guns lit up the heavens. But it wasn't enough. The Xelthar were prepared. Their dropships deployed energy shields, deflecting human attacks. Their assault walkers landed with thunderous force, crushing roads and buildings beneath their massive metal legs. Squads of reptilian soldiers poured out of the carriers, their plasma rifles cutting down anyone in their path. For the first time in human history, an alien army had set foot on Earth. The battle for Earth. In the Pentagon, General Marcus Holloway watched the invasion unfold on massive screens. His face was grim, but his eyes burned with determination. A young officer turned to him. "Sir, their forces are overwhelming. They're deploying war machines we've never seen before." Holloway nodded. "I know, but we're not done yet." He turned toward a secure communications line and gave the order. "Activate Project Revenant." Across the world, hidden underground bases came to life. Massive steel doors rumbled open, and something emerged from the depths. Humanity's real weapons. The Xelthar thought Earth was weak. They thought humanity was primitive. They had no idea what was coming. The Xelthar's first mistake. On the battlefield, Commander Xalvok stood on the front lines, watching his soldiers cut through human defenses. He grinned, baring sharp teeth. "These creatures are fragile," he said, stepping over the broken body of a fallen soldier. "They fall so easily." But then, something changed. From the distant horizon, a deep rumble echoed across the battlefield. Xalvok turned, frowning. His sharp eyes scanned the landscape. And then he saw them. Towering metal machines, rolling forward like unstoppable giants. Their weapons glowed with energy, their armor thick enough to withstand anything the Xelthar had. They weren't human tanks. They weren't like anything the Dominion had ever fought before. They were war machines built for one purpose: destroying invaders. One of his officers gasped. "Commander, their technology." Xalvok's grin disappeared. The humans were supposed to be weak. Their weapons were supposed to be inferior. But now, as Earth's true defenses activated, the real war was about to begin. The battlefield was no longer in the Xelthar's favor. Commander Xalvok stood atop the ruins of what was once a proud human city, his piercing reptilian eyes locked onto the distant horizon. Something was wrong. The humans were supposed to be losing. They were supposed to be weak. They should have surrendered by now, bowing before the might of the Xelthar Dominion. That's what every other species had done. But these humans, they weren't surrendering. Across the battlefield, Xalvok watched as human war machines pushed forward, unstoppable. These weren't just primitive tanks or outdated artillery. These were monsters. Hulking metal behemoths with impenetrable armor, railguns that fired with the force of a collapsing star, and soldiers that fought with a madness he had never seen before. Where was their fear? The Xelthar warriors fought like they always had, ruthless, efficient, brutal. Plasma cannons fired, scorching the earth. Their walkers crushed everything in their path. But the humans, they adapted. A squad of human soldiers emerged from the ruins of a destroyed building. Their armor was unlike anything Xalvok had seen before. Black, sleek, reinforced with some unknown alloy. Bullets and plasma rounds bounced off them like raindrops. And then they moved. Faster than they should have. One leaped onto a Xelthar soldier, driving a combat knife straight through its throat, severing arteries with terrifying precision. Another unloaded an energy rifle at point-blank range, disintegrating a Xelthar in seconds. Xalvok's warriors were losing ground. He growled, his claws digging into his palm. "Deploy the second wave," he ordered. "I want all forces on the ground now." A hesitation. His second-in-command, a hardened warrior named Zorvak, didn't move immediately. Xalvok turned sharply. "Did you not hear my command?" Zorvak shifted uncomfortably. "Commander, we've already deployed all available forces. We expected them to break by now." Silence. Zalvok's tail twitched. You mean? We have no reinforcements. Zorvak clenched his jaw. No, Commander. This is it. For the first time in his life, Zalvok felt something he never thought possible. Doubt. The war machines of Earth. In a hidden underground bunker, General Marcus Holloway watched as the tide of battle shifted. Project Revenant had been humanity's greatest secret. For years, Earth had prepared for the day an alien race would come looking for an easy conquest. But humans weren't fools. They had studied every known war in history, every conflict, every invasion. And they learned. The armored super soldiers were just one part of Project Revenant. The war machines were another, but the deadliest weapon. Humanity itself. On the battlefield, Sergeant Jackson Kane led his squad through the ruins, his rifle humming with energy. His squad moved like ghosts, slipping through the rubble, hunting the invaders. He saw a group of Selfar warriors trying to regroup behind a fallen walker. His visor locked onto them, his HUD highlighting their weak points. He grinned. Light them up. The squad fired. Hell rained down. The Selfar had never fought an enemy like this before, an enemy that fought like them, that hunted them, that used ruthless efficiency to eliminate them. Within seconds, the Selfar squad was reduced to nothing but charred remains. Kane moved forward. Keep pushing. The bastards thought they could take Earth. Let's show them what happens when you pick a fight with the wrong species. Selfar desperation. High above the battlefield. In orbit, the Selfar flagship trembled as something terrifying happened. Human ships, stealth ships, appeared from nowhere, decloaking just as they launched their attacks. The Selfar fleet, once invincible, was now in chaos. Explosions ripped through their warships. One by one, the mighty fleet of the Dominion was falling. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Korzul bared his fangs in frustration. How did we not detect them? His officers were scrambling, trying to regain control. Admiral, the human ships, they don't fight like any enemy we've ever seen. Korzul turned to the screen. The humans had taken the fight to space, and they were winning. This wasn't just a battle anymore. This was a slaughter. For the first time in Selfar history, they were losing. And if they didn't find a way to turn the tide soon, they would be wiped from existence. Zalvok could feel it. The battlefield was shifting, the tide turning in ways that should not have been possible. The Selfar Dominion had fought countless wars, crushed entire civilizations, wiped out species that dared to resist. But today, they were the ones being hunted. The mighty war machines of the Dominion were falling, their elite warriors, dead, their fleet, burning in orbit. And the worst part, the humans weren't stopping. They weren't just pushing the Selfar back. They were tearing them apart, piece by piece, with terrifying precision. Zalvok stood in the command center, his claws digging into the metal console as he watched another frontline collapse. He snarled in frustration. How are they still fighting? We outnumber them. We outgun them. Zorvak stood beside him, his scales pale with unease. Commander, the humans fight differently than anything we've seen before. Zalvok turned sharply. What do you mean? Zorvak hesitated, then pulled up a holographic display, replaying battle footage. They don't fight for survival. They don't fight for conquest. They fight to win. On the screen, a squad of humans outnumbered 10-1 had refused to retreat. Instead, they rushed forward. One soldier had been shot through the leg, but instead of falling back, he used the last of his strength to throw a grenade into a Selfar formation, taking them all with him. Another clip showed a human pilot flying straight into the center of a Selfar air squadron, weaving between plasma blasts at impossible speeds, outmaneuvering them like it was instinct. Zalvok growled. They are reckless. They'd waste their lives. Zorvak shook his head. No, Commander. They are relentless. They fight like they have nothing to lose. They fight as if. He paused. Zelvok narrowed his eyes. As if what? Zorvak exhaled. As if they have already decided that they will win. Silence. Zelvok clenched his fists. This was impossible. That Selfar Dominion had ruled the galaxy for centuries. No species had ever resisted them like this. And yet, the humans were still standing. No, more than that. They were winning. Humanity's answer to extinction. On the front lines, Sergeant Jackson Kane watched as the last Selfar defensive line collapsed. The alien warriors, once thought to be the most feared soldiers in the galaxy, were retreating. He grinned. "Look at them run," muttered one of his squad mates, reloading his rifle. Kane wiped the sweat from his brow. Blood and dirt smeared across his face. "They thought this was gonna be easy," he said. "They thought we begged for mercy." He turned to his squad, eyes burning with fire. "But there's one thing they never understood about humans." The squad leaned in, listening. Kane smirked. "We don't lose." A cheer erupted through the ranks. Soldiers, some injured, some exhausted, refused to back down. They had seen their cities burn. They had lost friends, family, and yet they were still here. Kane pointed toward the Selfar command base, the last stronghold of the enemy on Earth. Time to finish this. They moved forward. The end of the invasion. In orbit, Admiral Korzol watched as the human fleet ripped through his forces. The Selfar ships, once the pride of the Dominion, were crumbling. Human warships, smaller but faster, moved like predators. They didn't fight with brute force. They fought with strategy. They jammed Selfar communications, outmaneuvered their heaviest cruisers, and used weapons the Dominion had never seen before. One by one, Selfar warships detonated, their flaming wrecks falling toward the planet below. Korzol gritted his teeth. This wasn't just a lost battle. This was the beginning of the end. His second-in-command turned, his voice filled with barely contained fear. "Admiral, we need to retreat." Korzol's claws tightened. Retreat. The mighty Selfar Dominion retreating from a primitive species. It was unthinkable. But as another explosion rocked the ship, as human fighters swarmed like a plague of death, he realized the truth. They had no choice. With a heavy heart, Korzol turned to his officers. "Send the order." He exhaled. "We retreat." Across the fleet, Selfar ships activated their jump drives, fleeing into the darkness of space. For the first time in Selfar history, they ran. The moment of victory. Back on Earth, in the ruins of the Selfar command base, Kane stood over a defeated enemy. Zelvok was on his knees, blood dripping from his mouth. His armor was shattered, his forces were gone. He had lost. Kane knelt beside him. "You thought we'd break," he said quietly. "You thought you could erase us." Zelvok lifted his head, his reptilian eyes filled with rage. This is impossible." Kane tilted his head. "Is it?" Zelvok clenched his fists. "You are just humans. You were supposed to be weak." Kane chuckled. "Yeah, you're not the first to think that." He leaned in, voice cold as steel. "And you won't be the last." Zelvok shuddered. For the first time in his life, he understood that Selfar were never the most feared species in the galaxy. The humans were. The war was over, but humanity was not done. That Selfar Dominion had come to Earth expecting an easy victory, expecting to wipe out a primitive species. They had failed. They had been crushed, humiliated, and forced to flee. But humans did not just defend. They did not just survive. They hunted. And now, the ones who had dared to invade Earth were running for their lives. Nowhere to hide. Zelvok sat in the dark chamber of the Selfar War Council, his body weak from injuries, his pride shattered. The Dominion was in chaos. Their fleet had limped back into Selfar space, broken and humiliated. Their commanders whispered in fear, their leaders desperate for answers. "How?" One of the generals growled, slamming a fist on the table. How did we lose to them? Another general hissed. They shouldn't have been able to match our firepower, our numbers, our technology. Zalvok remained silent. He had seen it firsthand. The humans had not matched them. They had outclassed them. Not in strength, not in numbers, but in mindset. Humans do not fight like other species, he said finally, his voice hollow. They do not surrender when they should. They do not break when they are defeated. They fight until they win. The council chamber fell into an uneasy silence. Then, a low beep sounded. One of the officers frowned and turned to the holoscreen. The transmission was encrypted, traced back to a system near the Dominion's outer colonies. The screen flickered. A grainy image appeared. Zelfar soldiers, dead. Their bodies lay scattered across a burning Zelfar outpost. Some had been shot. Others had been torn apart in brutal close combat. The base was in ruins, smoke rising into the alien sky. But the most chilling part, the humans had left a message. A single phrase, carved into the walls of the Zelfar command center, written in their own language. We are coming. The counterattack. General Zorvak stared at the screen, his scales paling. They followed us. Zalvok closed his eyes. No, he whispered. They are hunting us. It was unthinkable. The Zelfar Dominion had never been on the defensive. They had never been prey. But now, outposts were going dark. Fleets were vanishing without a trace. Colonies were burning. The humans had not stopped with just Earth's victory. They had taken the war to the Dominion itself, and they were winning. The Ghost Fleet, Captain Daniel Reeves, stood aboard the U.S. Revenant, staring at the wreckage floating outside his ship. Zelfar warships, shattered and drifting in the void. It was almost too easy. These lizards aren't as scary when they're running, his weapons officer muttered. Reeves smirked. They made a mistake, he said, folding his arms. They thought they could take Earth. They thought we'd beg. He turned to the bridge crew. They forgot what we do to people who come for us. The lights on the bridge flickered red as a new transmission came through. Another colony had fallen. Another Zelfar fleet destroyed. And another human fleet was already moving to the next target. The hunt was just beginning. And that Zelfar Dominion was learning what it truly meant to be afraid. The mighty Zelfar Dominion, once feared across the galaxy, was crumbling. Not from outside invasion, not from civil war, but from the relentless hunt of humanity. They had made a grave mistake. They had invaded Earth, and now they were paying the price. A galaxy watching in fear. On the bridge of a Zelfar battleship, Supreme Commander Zalvok stood in silence, staring at the holoscreen. The map of the Dominion flickered before him. Red warnings covered entire sectors. Outposts lost. Fleets destroyed. Colonies erased. It had only been months since the failed invasion of Earth. In that short time, humanity had transformed from a species barely known across the stars into a nightmare that haunted the Zelfar's every waking moment. Their fleets were no longer attacking head-on. They were ghosts, striking without warning, disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. And worst of all, they left no survivors. Commander, one of his officers whispered, voice trembling. A new report. The colony on Varish 9 is. He didn't need to finish. Gone. Another world, another loss. Zalvok clenched his fists. Where are they attacking from? Where is their main fleet? The officer swallowed. We don't know. The bridge was silent. The fear was real now. Even the greatest empire in the galaxy had no defense against an enemy that refused to play by the rules. Humanity's warpath. Light years away, aboard the human warship U.S. Revenant, Captain Daniel Reeves studied the star map. His fleet was already moving to the next system. The Zelfar thought they were safe, that they could retreat deeper into their own territory. They were wrong. Next target, his tactical officer asked. Reeves didn't hesitate. He tapped the map, marking the Zelfar supply station. They lose their supplies, he said. they lose their war. Humanity had no interest in a long, drawn-out war. They weren't here to occupy. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to end this. Permanently. Desperation of the Xelfar. On the Dominion homeworld, the High Council was in chaos. For the first time in their history, they were the ones under attack. "We must sue for peace," one counselor shouted. "Peace?" another snapped. "Do you think the humans will listen after what we did?" There was no answer. The Xelfar had never shown mercy. Why would humanity? Then, another transmission came in. A fleet of Xelfar ships had been caught fleeing their own empire. The humans had hunted them down and left a single message broadcast across the Dominion. There is nowhere left to run. The council chamber fell silent. For the first time in history, the Xelfar Dominion knew what it felt like to be powerless. A message to the galaxy. Across the stars, other empires watched the war unfold. They had once feared the Xelfar. They had once believed humanity was weak. But now, they saw the truth. The Xelfar Dominion had been the greatest force in the galaxy. And now, they were being erased by humans. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The once mighty Xelfar Dominion was in ruins. Their fleets had been shattered. Their colonies were abandoned or burned. Their soldiers no longer fought with the arrogance of conquerors. They fought like desperate survivors. And yet humanity did not stop. They did not negotiate. They did not offer mercy. They did not forget. The war was no longer about survival. It was vengeance. The trap at Kelveris 5. Deep in the Kelveris system, the last remnants of the Xelfar fleet gathered near a heavily fortified station. It was their final stronghold, the last place in the galaxy where they could mount a defense. Or so they thought. Supreme Commander Xalvok stood on the bridge of his battered flagship, his mandibles clicking nervously. His fleet had once numbered in the thousands. Now, only dozens remained. But here, they would make their stand. They had no choice. "Commander," an officer said, voice shaking. "Scanners detect nothing. No human warships in range." Xalvok exhaled in relief. Perhaps the humans were finally slowing down. Perhaps. The lights flickered. Then the alarm screamed. Massive energy spikes detected. The screen lit up with red markers, hundreds of them. Human warships uncloaked all around them. They had been waiting, watching, letting the Xelfar think they were safe. And now, the trap was closing. "Open fire," Xalvok roared. His fleet fired in all directions, plasma bolts lighting up space. But it was too late. The humans had already moved. The wrath of humanity. The U.S. Revenant led the assault, its railguns shredding through the Xelfar defenses like paper. Captain Daniel Reeves watched from his command chair, ice cold. "No survivors," he ordered. The humans moved like predators, hitting weak points, cutting off escape routes. The Xelfar fought, but there was no hope. One by one, their warships were torn apart. Some tried to surrender. The humans ignored them. This was not a war with rules. This was retribution, the fall of a tyrant. On his burning flagship, Xalvok clutched the edge of his command console, watching his empire die. It was unthinkable. The Xelfar had ruled the galaxy for centuries. They had crushed species beneath their boots, wiped out civilizations, made entire worlds bow to them. And now, they were nothing. A transmission came through, a human message. The screen flickered, and Captain Reeves appeared, his expression unreadable. "You should have left Earth alone." Xalvok bared his fangs. You are monsters." Reeves didn't argue. He simply cut the transmission. Moments later, the Xelfar flagship exploded. The message that shook the galaxy. The battle was over. The last of the Xelfar warships were nothing but debris. Humanity had done the impossible. They had destroyed an empire that had ruled through fear, and they had done it in months. The message was clear. To every empire watching, to every species that had once feared the Xelfar. There is a new power in the galaxy, and humanity was not to be challenged. The war was over. The Xelfar Dominion, once the most feared empire in the galaxy, was no more. Their fleets had been wiped out, their colonies left in ruins, and their leaders erased from existence. But humanity was not celebrating. They were planning. Because they knew the truth, this was only the beginning. The silence after the storm. Across the galaxy, alien empires watched in stunned silence. For centuries, the Xelfar had ruled with terror, their names spoken in whispers. No one had dared to challenge them. Until now. Until humans. And humanity had not just defeated them. They had erased them. The old order of the galaxy was broken. The balance of power had shifted. The question now was simple. What would humanity do next? The Council of Earth. In a secure military station orbiting Mars, the leaders of humanity gathered. Admirals, generals, strategists, the minds that had won the war. A massive holographic map showed the galaxy, the Xelfar's former territory, now a power vacuum. Admiral Carter, the supreme commander of the human defense fleet, studied the map with cold eyes. "We have two options," he said. "We take control, or we leave it to chaos." Silence filled the room. Then, Captain Daniel Reeves spoke, the man who had led the final assault on the Xelfar. "If we leave, another empire will rise, maybe one worse than the Xelfar." A general frowned. "Are we saying we take their place?" Reeves met his gaze. "No, we build something better. The new galactic power." Within weeks, human warships patrolled former Xelfar space. Not as conquerors, as enforcers. They hunted down the last Xelfar warlords, ensuring no remnants could rise again. They freed enslaved worlds, returning power to those who had lived under Xelfar rule. But everyone knew the truth. Humanity was now the dominant force in the galaxy. And the other empires, they were terrified. For the first time in history, the predators of the galaxy had become the prey. Because they all knew one thing. If humanity could destroy the Xelfar, they could destroy anyone. The final warning. A transmission was sent across the stars. From the United Earth Directorate to all galactic powers. Let the fall of the Xelfar be a lesson. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. But if any empire dares to threaten humanity or its allies, we will end them. The message was simple and unforgettable. The galaxy had changed forever. And humanity. They were just getting started.